The Jets get completely embarrassed by the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, and one thing is clear. This is the football version of the worst team money could buy. Let's talk about it today on Locked On Jets.
You are Locked On Jets, your daily New York Jets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Monday, October 21st, 2024, and I'm your host, John B. from ganggreenNation.com. Thanking you so much for making the show your first listener, first watch every day. If you're new to the show, this is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. We have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday, and today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. Well, we come to you today recapping an ugly New York Jets loss. They were defeated by the Pittsburgh Steelers 37-15 on Sunday Night Football. I'm sorry if you had to watch that game. That was a painful game to watch, especially in the second half. And when you think about it, right now, this is a very special time in New York sports. You probably did not see the game last night because it was happening at the same time the Jets were playing, but the New York Liberty won their first WNBA championship in franchise history. So if you're a New York Liberty fan today, congratulations. Outstanding season, capped by a championship, the first in franchise history. If you're a Yankees fan, I'm a Yankees fan. We're going to the World Series. Yankees won the AL pennant on Saturday night with a thrilling extra innings win. If you're a Mets fan, tough loss last night to end the season. I'm sure you're very disappointed today that the team fell short of the World Series, but still, you have to be so proud of that team. That was a team that overcame every expectation at the start of the season, team that overcame so many obstacles, team that started the season in such a difficult way, losing all those games the first week, bouncing back, overcoming adversity, the thrilling wins down the stretch. If you're a Mets fan, the season might be over. They may have fallen short of the World Series, but you have to be so proud of that team. But I also think about another Mets team, a Mets team from 32 years ago, the 1992 Mets, a team that at the time set the record for the highest payroll in Major League Baseball history. And it was an incredibly disappointing team. They had a horrible season. And there was a book that was written about that team called The Worst Team Money Could Buy. And that's the title that I think the New York Jets deserve right now, because this is the football version of the worst team money could buy. This is just an unbelievably bad football team. There's really not much redeeming about this team right now. I mean, here's the thing. The Jets got blown out in this game last night. Again, the final score was 37-15. The Jets lost this game by 22 points. And they did that despite really controlling the game through the first 29 minutes. I mean, up until like the last minute and change of the first half, the Jets were in complete control of this game. They were dominating. In fact, right before Aaron Rodgers threw that interception with about a minute and a quarter left in the first half, I was saying that's the best half the Jets have played all season. They were firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. Breece Hall was looking like Breece Hall again. The defense was playing well. They were dominating in the trenches, and it all fell apart. They were up 9 at that point, and that just shows you that you're a bad football team. Bad football teams find ways to lose even when they dominate in the first half. Bad football teams find a way to get blown out even when they're dominating in the first half. You know what a good football team does? Jets had the ball up 9 with less than 2 minutes to go in the first half. A good football team puts it in the end zone, or if not, they drive and kick a field goal. A good football team, when you have your opponent on the ropes, you put them away. That's what the Pittsburgh Steelers did in the second half of this game. The Pittsburgh Steelers went out and took it to the Jets in the second half, and the Jets had no answers for Pittsburgh. The Jets, when they had everything going for them. And what really started it was the Jeff Ulbrich dropping the challenge flag play, where the Jets, it looked like they had scored on, maybe they'd scored on the play before, and they were marked short of the goal line. So Ulbrich pulls out the challenge flag and drops it. He drops it, so the Jets snap the ball before Ulbrich can pick it up and throw the challenge flag on the field, and they end up scoring a touchdown. I know what you were thinking at that point, because I was thinking the exact same thing. Finally, something went right for the Jets, because you know as well as I do, if Ulbrich had actually thrown the challenge flag, A, the play would not have been overturned, and B, the Jets would have been stopped on the next play. The Jets would not have scored a touchdown there. Instead, Ulbrich drops the challenge flag, so he doesn't get the challenge in on time, and the Jets score a touchdown as a result. And you're thinking, like, maybe this is the break the team needs. This season has been so difficult, especially the last 3 weeks leading into it. This team has not caught any breaks at all, and finally we catch a break. And at the time, I think a lot of us were thinking maybe that's the play that turns this Jets season around. And as much as I've been a skeptic of this Jets team, at the end of about 29 minutes into this game, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I've misjudged this team. Maybe there's something here. That was a really good half of football. My biggest complaint with the Jets is, even in the 2 games that they won this year, maybe one of the 2 games, the game against Tennessee, they weren't playing good football. And you could say that, like, they you could say that, yeah, they were close the last couple of weeks, but they were playing bad football in those games. The only reason they were close in those games during the 3 games that led into this one is that the other teams gave the Jets chance after chance to win the game, and the Jets just wouldn't take it. The Jets were actually playing well in the first half of this one. The Jets were in control. They were up 9 points. And by the way, Jeff Ulbrich made a great call. The Steelers committed a penalty, a very questionable penalty. The Steelers blocked the extra point after the drop challenge flag touchdown, and there was a very questionable penalty call against them. Ulbrich goes for 2 because they get the ball at the 1 yard line. I love that. And I think, like, sometimes coaches are too beholden to game situations. They say, "Oh, we're only up 4. This is what the card says. Oh, we're up 3. We shouldn't go for 2 here." You're in the second quarter of a game. You don't know like what things are going to be like in the fourth quarter. Your job should be to bank as many points as possible. And when you get the opportunity to go for 2 on the 1 yard line, that's a high percentage play. And the Jets hit it, and they were up 9. They're up 2 scores as a result. And what happens? Aaron Rodgers throws a brutal interception. And there's no other way to put it. And that gives the Steelers momentum. And the Steelers just take complete control of the game from that point. The Jets don't get another defensive stop the rest of the way. The Steelers go and score a touchdown. So the defense, Aaron Rodgers throws a horrible interception. But the Jets defense did not pick them up. The Steelers go in and score a touchdown. And they score on all 4 of their possessions in the second half. And 3 of them are touchdowns. The Jets hold them to 1 field goal. It is just such a bad performance by the New York Jets. What's good about this team right now? It's not the offense. I thought Davante Adams was supposed to change everything. And I sat here on Tuesday and I said, yeah, like, maybe Davante Adams makes them a little better, but there are fundamental flaws with this team. And I said the same thing 2 weeks ago on Tuesday when they fired Robert Saleh. The Jets are, you could say that the Jets brought in these big names. You could say they made these big changes like firing the coach, but there are fundamental flaws that these things can't fix. You can bring in as many big names as you want. I know Hassan Reddick's going to be reporting this week, and our long national nightmare is over, and he's that holdout is finished, and Hassan Reddick's going to be here. I'm sure the Jets are going to try and tell you that's going to fix the defense. Well, they told you this week that Davante Adams was going to fix the offense. He was a total non-factor in this game. There's only so much an individual player can do on a football team where you have a 53-man roster, where you have a big coaching staff. Football teams are big, complex organisms, and there's only so much one person can do. That's the reason firing Robert Saleh hasn't really changed a whole lot. I actually think the offense is schemed better. I think there are some things that you like in this game. Maybe not so much the performances. I like the fact that they practically every play TJ Watt was double teamed. They really made an effort to not let TJ Watt destroy the game. I like that Ulbrich was aggressive. I think Ulbrich's game management's been an upgrade on Saleh, but that only means so much. There are fundamental flaws with this team, and I know what I'm about to say is controversial, and I try not to be a hot take artist on the show, so I don't think what I'm about to say is a hot take. The biggest problem for this team right now is the quarterback, because Aaron Rodgers is not looking good. Aaron Rodgers is looking every bit the 40-year-old he is at the quarterback position. And you're on the Locked On Jets podcast, I think we need to have a serious talk about Aaron Rodgers and what he can and can't do right now, because I think his play has reached a level that's quite alarming. And we'll talk about that as we continue here on this Monday edition of Locked On Jets. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us. But what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. Therapy has so many benefits. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it's not just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How do you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Well, our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and the Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic. And hopefully they'll start teaching a course on how to run an NFL team effectively. I think Woody Johnson might want to take that one. In any event, all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jets your first listen or first watch every day. A big shout out to you every dayers. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. We have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday. We are recapping what can only be described as a brutal Jets loss. They were defeated by the Pittsburgh Steelers 37-15. The Jets fall to 2-5 on the season. There's really not a lot good you can say about the New York Jets as a team right now. And unfortunately, I think if we're talking about where the Jets are bad, you have to start at the quarterback. This was not a good performance by Aaron Rodgers. I think the numbers are kind of deceiving in this one. If you look at the box score, his night was actually a pretty solid one. He finished 24 of 39, 276 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Of course, one of the 2 interceptions was not really his fault. It was an accurate throw that Garrett Wilson missed, for about lack of a better way to describe it. The ball popped up in the air and the Steelers were able to grab it. But that first interception, that was all Rodgers, and it was a brutal throw. Now, it was a nice play by the defender, but it was a brutal throw, an ill-advised throw to the point where the Jets were in complete control of the game. That throw completely turned the game around. But beyond that, I mean, if you were watching this game, I feel like you had to be alarmed by Rodgers. Again, statistically, he averaged 7 yards per passing attempt, but that includes a play that happened in the first half where Breece Hall essentially caught a check down and zigged and zagged through the defense for a 57-yard gain. If you were watching that play, like, it was amazing how Chris Collinsworth was talking about how amazing Aaron Rodgers was on that, because Rodgers really checked the ball down and Collinsworth is going on. What an amazing throw. It was a check down that Breece Hall caught and made something happen where it really should have been a short gain, and Breece made it all happen. If you were watching this game, I mean, Rodgers was just throwing UFOs up there. I mean, Davante Adams was supposed to be the guy that was going to unlock this Jets offense. At least that's what the Jets told us during the week. Well, the first throw Rodgers had of the night, he was not on the same page with them. And we heard a lot about their chemistry. We know Davante is living with Aaron Rodgers, and that was kind of an omen for the night. Davante Adams was a complete non-factor in this game for a guy who was supposed to change everything about the Jets offense. He had 3 catches for 30 yards, was shut out in the second half entirely. I'm not saying it's Davante's fault, but I'm just saying that, there's only so much of a difference one player can make, especially when there are this many broken things on the team. But unfortunately for the Jets, the thing that might be most difficult to fix is Aaron Rodgers. And I say that because I think Aaron Rodgers' issues are just that he's 40 years old. And it seems to me like the deeper we've gotten into the season, the worse he's gotten. And we're only 7 weeks in. And at the first sign of pressure, he's having issues. He's missing throws left and right. And the Jets are having issues keeping him clean, especially at the left tackle position. Tyron Smith is not playing well. Again, Collinsworth gave him a lot of credit late in the game. He made a comment like Tyron Smith's much, much better this week than he was last week. Well, if you were watching the game, it felt like every time there was a replay, Tyron Smith was getting beat and Tyron Smith was allowing pressure. And you can just tell that Rodgers is very uncomfortable with pressure right now. You can tell he's uncomfortable when he's hit. It does not seem like he's 100%. We know he suffered that ankle injury 2 weeks ago against the Minnesota Vikings in London. And the bigger issue is, where do we go from here? Because you say, you might say, the ankle's going to heal. The challenge is that, and Rodgers has been pretty open with this, that he can't recover from hits the way he used to. He's 40 years old. And when you get to that age, I remember, Ray Lewis played linebacker, which is obviously a much more physical position, a much more physically demanding position. But I remember, near the end of his career, Ray Lewis was in his late 30s, the great linebacker from the Baltimore Ravens. And he talked about how, he got into like November, December in the football season. It took him like 15 minutes just to get out of bed in the morning because it's the pounding his body took. And it's not that Rodgers is going to take the same pounding at the quarterback position, but it's that your body just doesn't recover as well. So if we talk about Rodgers, I don't think we can look at this and say, okay, it's going to be fine. Okay, he's going to get healthy. It's just tough to see where this goes from here. And that's a problem because this offensive infrastructure just seems broken right now for the New York Jets. Yeah, I guess if like Devontae Adams is here a couple more weeks, maybe he'll get on the same page with Rodgers better. But you have to remember, he's 31. He's going to be 32. I think the people who are expecting Devontae Adams to be the Devontae Adams of 3-4 years ago might be in for a rude awakening, because a lot of the stuff that's being said about Devontae Adams now, about how we got this elite player, we got this all-pro talent, that's what people were saying when the Jets traded for Aaron Rodgers. It's also what people were saying when the Jets signed Tyron Smith. These guys are getting the height. And it's kind of like a microcosm of the whole Jets team, where we talked all offseason about how they look good on paper. And on paper means if these guys played at the level that they were at in their primes, then yeah, the Jets look pretty good. But we knew going into the season that this was a big risk, that guys at the age these guys are at, they tend to decline. And you're seeing it now for across the offense with these guys. I think there's only so much Devontae Adams can do to fix this. And the biggest problem is it almost feels like we're back to 2022 or 2023 with this offense. What's been the biggest difference through the last 2 weeks when the offense has had success? So I thought the offense was pretty good for the most part against Buffalo. They did not finish in the red zone. I thought the offense was pretty good in the first half of this game. They had 15 points. It felt like they were on their way to scoring more before Rodgers threw that interception. Well, Breece Hall got going. And it feels like we're right back to, how many times have I said it? You can probably go back to like any game recap from 2022 or 2023. If Breece Hall doesn't do something special, the offense can't do anything. Breece had 114 yards from scrimmage in the first half. I mean, that's the reason the offense scored. It wasn't because Aaron Rodgers was playing great. Again, he was missing throws left and right. He wasn't doing what the Jets needed him to do. It was all Breece Hall, and it was mostly through the air because the Steelers kind of bottled up Breece on the ground, which is what we were expecting. The Jets were clearly not a strong run blocking team, and Breece has had his issues picking his holes, but Breece was making plays in the receiving game, and Breece did score a touchdown on an excellent cut in the open field. One of the few plays the Jets did block up well in the run game. If Breece doesn't do it, it's not happening. Garrett Wilson obviously had a rough game. That interception bounced off him in the third quarter. That ended up being a big play. Devontae Adams again was nowhere to be seen. I mean, it's amazing to say this, but like at this point of the year, it feels like Allen Lazard's the most consistent receiver the Jets have. Who would have thought that would be the case? Lazard made a couple of plays in this game. He ended with 4 catches for 58 yards. He made a couple big plays, but there's just nothing that's really working. And the Jets now potentially have some issues on the offensive line. We know they have issues with Tyron Smith. And anybody who thinks like Olu Fashanu is going to go in and play better than Tyron Smith, I mean, I think you're kidding yourself. Fashanu did not look ready to play when he was in for Morgan Moses. And you know what? It's not about Fashanu playing on the right side when he's used to playing left tackle. He's just not physically ready. Now, maybe they should make a change, because at 2-5, it's going to be very difficult for this team to dig out of this hole. So maybe you just say, what the heck with it. We're just going to give him the reps and hope he gets better for next year. But that's not going to fix the offensive line. And now Elijah Vera Tucker's down. Elijah Vera Tucker left this game. He was replaced by Xavier Newman, who left the game really scary injury. Was carted off the field, sent to the hospital. Real terrifying moment in this game. So Xavier Newman's gone. Xavier Newman's now also injured. So now you're going with Jake Hansen. And the way Aaron Rodgers is playing right now, you need a fortress in front of him, because it's a difficult thing for him to function even when the Jets are playing well up front. He's missing throws. I'm starting to feel like the arm's not. We've talked a lot about how the arm's almost as good as it used to be. The deeper we get into the season, the less true that seems. It seems like Rodgers was maybe the arm was there in September. It feels like the arm strength is waning a little bit. It just feels like everything about Rodgers' game is waning. It feels like he's very jittery in the pocket. He doesn't want to take hits. He's missing throws left and right. He's not setting his feet on throws. I mean, there was one throw in the second half where he had Garrett Wilson, near the goal line. He just misfired, and maybe Garrett could have come up with it, but it was still a bad throw. Aaron Rodgers is a problem right now, and I don't know that it's a fixable problem. I don't know that he can bounce back at this age. And we're going to talk plenty in the weeks ahead about the risks of putting as much as the Jets did in this 40-year-old quarterback. It was a very risky move at the time, and it looks like it's coming back to bite the Jets. It's also coming back to bite the Jets the way their defense is playing. Ahead here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we'll talk about just a dismal defensive performance. And there's one thing that's really frustrating about this defensive performance. I'll tell you what that is as we continue here on this Monday game recap edition of Locked On Jets. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Now, the Jets are heading to New England next weekend for a game against the Patriots in Foxborough. Believe it or not, the Jets are 6.5-point favorites in this game. This team that's lost 4 in a row is a 6.5-point road favorite against the New England Patriots, which maybe it's not a surprise because the Patriots are really dreadful. If there's any team in the NFL that should be a 6.5-point home underdog against a team on a 4-game losing streak, it probably is the New England Patriots. I don't have a lot of confidence in this Jets team right now, even going up against the Patriots. If you do, though, FanDuel is the place to get in on the action because, you get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, it's FanDuel, FanDuel.com. This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Monday. We're recapping a very ugly game for the New York Jets, a very difficult Monday to be a New York Jets fan. The team is now 2-5 after a 37-15 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football. The Jets were embarrassed on national television. And one of the frustrating parts of this game is that the Jets were in complete control in the first half. And it felt like we were finally getting on track on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I know the Jets statistically, in many ways, were a good defense coming into this game, but I felt like this defense was a paper tiger through much of the early part of the season. They went up against Will Levis, who really was not a very good quarterback. They went up against that New England team that just a dreadful football team. Really could not do anything whatsoever on the offensive side of the ball. They went up against the Denver Broncos on a rainy, windy day at MetLife Stadium where Denver's quarterback, Bo Nix, was having trouble putting the ball within 5 yards of any of his wide receivers. They went up against Sam Darnold, our old friend playing for the Minnesota Vikings. And look, Sam is obviously having something of a career renaissance with with Minnesota, but you saw the old Sam Darnold tendencies come to the forefront in that game in London, and I think you're starting more and more to see the old Sam Darnold tendencies come to the forefront. Last week against Buffalo, they finally faced a real offense. They got run over by the Bills' run game, and Josh Allen torched them. Finally, in the first half, it felt like the Jets' defense was playing well. Now, part of this was Russell Wilson was really bad. Russell Wilson was missing throws all over the place, like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you watch that first half, you were sitting there saying, I remember when Russell Wilson versus Aaron Rodgers used to be a premium quarterback matchup. And in the first half, both of them looked washed up. The difference was Russell Wilson shook it off in the second half, and the Steelers got their run game working. Going up against an offensive line that's had to shuffle guys in and out. It felt like a game where Quinnen Williams could get right. Quinnen Williams was off to a slow start this season. And in the first half, you saw him making disruptive plays. You saw him getting into the backfield. You saw him messing up the Steelers' plans. And then the second half came, and it was like a different Jets unit. And this has been one of the issues with the Jets all season long. They can't put together a full 60 minutes. They can put together a decent half. I mean, Tennessee, they kind of got torched in the first quarter of that game. But they bounced back. The last 2.5 quarters of that game, they played pretty well. Against New England, that was the one time they put together a full 60 minutes of defense, but New England can't really do anything on the offensive side of the ball. And Denver, the second half of that game, the Broncos got too many big runs. The Broncos running backs average in a game where Denver couldn't throw the ball, the Broncos running backs averaged 5 yards per carry. It's Minnesota. Jets got torched in the first half. They played well in the second half, but got torched in the first half. And Buffalo was a complete disaster. This defense just is not very good right now. And they're going to get Hassan Reddick back. Maybe he helps a bit. I mean, it probably help a bit, but again, it's kind of like adding Davante Adams to the offense. There's only so much he can help, and he's also 30 years old. So again, the other guy, I don't think Hassan Reddick is going to be bad. I don't think Davante Adams is going to be bad, but on the wrong side of 30, I think it's a lot to ask them to continue to be at their peak performance. And even if they're at their peak performance, there's only so much they could do. Again, football is a very complex game. There are a lot of players, a lot of moving parts on a football team. One guy can only do so much, especially when he's not the quarterback. And the Jets just let the Steelers do whatever they want in the second half of this game when the Steelers had the ball. Look, part of the issue is that the Jets were really banged up in the secondary. DJ Reed did not play in this game. Michael Carter II did not play in this game. Jets were banged up at the safety position. Chuck Clark missed the game. Ashton Davis suffered an injury during the game. And the Steelers had a couple lucky plays. I mean, there were a couple circus catches the Steelers made in the second half, but that produced a result in the early but going for the Steelers was really ugly. It was in the first half. It was this really ugly ball Russell Wilson threw, And Brendan Knuckles was in great position. He just didn't turn his head. He didn't find the ball. Brendan Knuckles should have broken the ball up. That set up a Steelers score. In the second half, the Steelers just did whatever they wanted. The Jets weren't generating enough of a pass rush, and they were getting completely pushed around in the run game. And the play that really the sequence that really stuck out to me was well after the game was decided. The Jets were down 30-15 late in the fourth quarter. The Steelers got the ball with 7 minutes and 53 seconds left. The Jets turned the ball over on downs. And the Jets just let them run down the field. The Jets essentially let the Steelers run out the clock. The Steelers went 13 plays. It was so bad. And the Steelers, not only did the Steelers go down the field and score a touchdown on 13 plays, Jets allowed them to convert a pair of fourth downs, including a fourth down and 2 run by Najee Harris, where he took the ball 10 yards into the end zone. This was in the last minute of the game, so it didn't really matter. It didn't impact the score. It was decided by them. But that's like one of those microcosm moments where the Jets are just showing no pride out there. Jets are getting blown off the ball and allow a 10-yard touchdown run when everybody knows the Steelers are running the ball on 4th and short, where they're just trying to run out the clock. I don't even think the Steelers wanted to score a touchdown there. I think they just wanted to pick up the first down and run out the clock. And the Jets just get annihilated. This defensive line is an issue, and again, Hassan Reddick can only fix so much. Sauce Gardner, I love Sauce. People ask, is Sauce Gardner overrated? Well, overrated means you don't deserve the accolades you've received. Sauce Gardner's been a first-team All-Pro both seasons he's been in the NFL prior to this year. He's earned it. He was phenomenal the first 2 years. He's not having the same caliber year this year. He was flagged for a big penalty, and I know it was a bang call, but I felt like it was a penalty. Quinton Williams, kind of disappeared in this game, and the Jets are just getting pushed around too much up front. For all the talk about this defense being talented, it's not a very talented defensive line. Even when you add Reddick back, this is not an elite defensive line. Reddick will help, but there's only so much he can help. This defense got absolutely torched, and it's been one of the stories of the season. The defense, again, they can play a decent half of football. They've shown, aside from when they were playing a terrible New England team, and the one silver lining is that they get New England again next week, so maybe they can shut them down again. This defense can't play a full 60-minute game. This defense had opportunities to keep the Jets in the game. They failed every time. They did not get a stop in the second half. The Steelers scored the last 5 times they had the ball. You see missed tackles. You see a lack of discipline. If getting rid of Robert Saleh was supposed to reinstill discipline in this team, I don't think it's working. But that's all the Jets have right now. Woody Johnson has a bunch of quick fixes. Woody Johnson has overrated this team. He imposed his will on this team. He built the team that he felt was talented, and now we're seeing this team is not talented. Late in the fourth quarter, there was a shot of Woody Johnson in the owner's box. I can only imagine what was going through his mind, because this has been a very confident guy. He's a guy who's insisted that this team was better than it's been playing. He was a man who insisted that firing Robert Saleh and trading for Devontae Adams was going to fix everything. Well, it hasn't. It's a bad football team. It's the worst team money could buy. Anyway, thank you for listening. This has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is our motto. If you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so that you'll never miss an episode. If you enjoy the show and are listening on a podcast source, please give it a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give this episode a big thumbs up. Helps us out, helps other Jets fans find the podcast. Try to enjoy your Monday. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Jets.